I, 32 male, work as a project manager for a mid-sized construction company here in Colorado. I've been there 7 years, working my way up from site supervisor to running million-dollar commercial builds. I clear about $98,000 a year plus bonuses. I own my house outright thanks to my grandfather's life insurance when I was 25, and I drive a paid-off 2018 Ford F-150 that I bought with cash from my emergency fund. Not flashy, but I believe in living below my means and building wealth slowly. My background is solid blue-collar. Dad was a union electrician for 32 years. Mom worked as a school administrator. They taught me the value of hard work and financial responsibility from day one. Son, Dad would say, while we worked on projects in his garage, debt is slavery in disguise. If you cannot afford to buy it twice, you cannot afford it once. That philosophy served me well. I had an 8-month emergency fund, maxed out 401k contributions, and enough saved for a 20% down payment on an even bigger house when the time came. The house I bought is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath ranch style in a decent neighborhood outside Denver. I paid $285,000 for it in 2019. Now, it is worth close to $420,000. I have put about $35,000 into improvements over the years. New kitchen, finished basement, landscape, the whole yard myself. It is my sanctuary, and every dollar I invested increased both its value and my quality of life. I met Sarah, 29, female, 2.5 years ago at my buddy Jake's housewarming party. She worked as a marketing coordinator for a local tech startup called Innovate CEO, making around $58,000. A beautiful brunette with an infectious laugh, and what seemed like a good head on her shoulders. We clicked immediately over craft beer and hiking stories. She seemed impressed that I had my life together, a steady career, my own place, clear financial goals. The first 8 months were incredible. Sarah appreciated that I was a real adult instead of the man-children she had dated before. We would spend weekends hiking in Rocky Mountain National Park, cooking elaborate dinners together at my place, and planning small trips around Colorado. She would post Instagram stories about our adventures with captions like, "Finally found a man who has his life together," and date nights with someone who knows how to plan ahead. Looking back, the red flags were there from the beginning, but I was too caught up in the relationship to see them clearly. The biggest warning sign was her obsession with her ex-boyfriend, David. She would bring him up constantly in conversation, not in a wistful way, but in this self-congratulatory manner about how evolved their breakup had been. David and I had such a mature separation, she would say at dinner parties. We realized we are better as friends. Not everyone can handle that level of emotional intelligence. She would drop his name constantly. David this, David that, and how David was so progressive for staying friends with his exes. David worked as a regional sales manager for some financial services company, pulled in around $85,000, and drove a leased BMW 3 Series that he was constantly posting about on social media. He was one of those guys who took mirror selfies at the gym and used phrases like grinding and beast mode, unironically. Sarah would show me his Instagram posts and comment on how motivated and successful he was. Another red flag was how she would make little digs about my traditional thinking whenever I expressed normal relationship boundaries. When I mentioned that I would not be comfortable with her having sleepovers with male friends, she would roll her eyes dramatically. "That is so possessive," she would say. "Mark, evolve. People do not think that way." She would follow these conversations with Instagram stories featuring quotes about secure love and growing past jealousy, clearly directed at me. The worst was her obsession with appearing enlightened on social media. Every relationship milestone got documented with long captions about how mature and secure we were compared to other couples. When friends would post normal couple photos, she would screenshot them and send them to her group chat with laughing emojis, calling their relationships basic and insecure. She started a group chat called Evolved Couples Goals with 3 other couples from her work, constantly comparing our relationship dynamics and positioning herself as the expert on healthy partnership models. I should have run when she began live streaming our date nights to provide relationship education content to her followers. But I was in love with the woman I thought she was, not the performance artist she actually turned out to be. The engagement happened last Christmas Eve. I had been saving for 6 months to buy her the perfect ring, a 1.8-carat solitaire from a local jeweler that cost me $9,200 after tax. I proposed during a weekend trip to Vail at the same mountain overlook where we had had our first serious conversation about building a future together. She said yes, cried happy tears, and immediately started live streaming the moment on Instagram before I could even stand up. "Oh my God, you guys, Mark just proposed, and I am literally shaking," she screamed into her phone while I was still on one knee, ring box in hand. This is what evolved love looks like when both people do the work. The live stream got over 3,000 viewers and hundreds of comments. She spent our entire celebration dinner responding to messages instead of talking to me about our future. Wedding planning began in January, and that is when Sarah's true colors really started showing. "I want David to be my man of honor," she announced over dinner one night in February, like she was discussing what to have for dessert. I nearly choked on my steak. "You are what now? My man of honor?" Like a maid of honor, but David is a guy. It is becoming really popular among progressive couples who are not bound by outdated gender norms. She pulled out her phone to show me Pinterest boards she had been creating. "Look, I found tons of examples. It shows how evolved our relationship is compared to traditional couples who are threatened by opposite-sex friendships. Sarah, that is your ex-boyfriend. Ex-boyfriend who is now one of my closest friends. Mark, this is exactly the kind of old-fashioned thinking we need to work on together." She gave me that patronizing smile she had perfected, the one that made me feel like a child being lectured by a teacher. Secure men do not feel threatened by their partner's friendships. "I thought you were more evolved than that." I tried to stay calm and reasonable. It is not about being threatened. It is about appropriate boundaries. Most people would find it strange to have an ex-boyfriend in the wedding party. Most people are insecure and living in the past. I thought you were different. She sighed dramatically, like I was disappointing her. "Fine, if you are going to be jealous and controlling about it, I will consider other options. But I am not going to pretend my friendship with David does not exist just to coddle your ego." That night, she posted a series of Instagram stories about fighting outdated relationship norms and educating your partner to be better. The stories included slides with texts like, "When you are trying to normalize healthy opposite-sex friendships, but your man needs more growth," and, "Reminder, your partner's insecurities are not your responsibility to manage." But she did not consider other options. Over the next week, she doubled down. The final story was a picture of her and David at a coffee shop, both of them laughing and looking overly intimate. The caption read, "When your bestie agrees to be your man of honor, despite your fiancé's insecurities, evolution in action, secure women choose secure men, wedding planning with my bestie." The comments were a battlefield. Her evolved friends were cheering her on with comments like, "Yas queen, show him what secure love looks like," and "Your emotional intelligence is goals." But plenty of people were confused and critical. "Girl, that is weird. Red flags everywhere. And this poor man has no idea what is coming." My own family member started texting me asking what the hell was going on. My sister called me directly. "Mark, Mom showed me Sarah's Instagram. Are you seriously okay with this? Because it looks insane from the outside." When I confronted Sarah about the post, she acted like I was being completely unreasonable. "I am not going to hide my friendships to coddle your ego, Mark. David is important to me, and if you love me, you will support what makes me happy. What makes you happy is publicly humiliating me and calling me insecure to your followers. You are only humiliated because you are choosing to see it that way. This is a you problem, not a me problem. I am trying to help you grow as a person." Classic gaslighting wrapped in therapy speak. But I was so invested in the relationship, the ring, the venue deposits we had already put down, the emotional investment of 2 years, that I convinced myself to go along with it. The next 4 months were a slow-motion train wreck that I was too proud and stubborn to stop. David was not just the man of honor, he became Sarah's co-wedding planner. They had weekly coffee meetings every Tuesday to discuss their vision for the ceremony. She would text him constantly throughout the day, asking his opinion on everything from flower arrangements to music selections. When I would suggest we needed to finalize catering numbers or confirm transportation, she would say, "Let me run it by David first. He has such great taste, and he is so good at event planning." I started feeling like a third wheel in my own wedding planning. Sarah would come home from her coffee dates with David, carrying shopping bags full of wedding magazines and talking excitedly about ideas they had come up with. When I would try to contribute suggestions, she would dismiss them. "David and I already decided on something better," or "that is not really the vibe we are going for." The bachelor and bachelorette parties got combined into one massive joint event because evolved couples celebrate together, instead of perpetuating toxic gender segregation. Sarah rented out a private room at an upscale brewery downtown for 60 people. It cost about $2,800 that came out of our wedding budget. She and David spent the entire night attached at the hip, taking photos that looked more romantic than friendly, feeding each other appetizers and dancing to slow songs while I sat at a table with my groomsmen, feeling like an idiot. When one of my buddies commented that the whole dynamic was weird, Sarah loudly announced to the entire party that insecure people always try to poison healthy relationships because they cannot handle growth. Meanwhile, she ramped up her social media campaign about our progressive wedding. She posted TikToks about normalizing friendship with exes and teaching your man to be secure that got thousands of views. The comment sections were battlegrounds between her supporters calling me lucky to have such an evolved fiancé, and normal people pointing out how disrespectful the whole situation was. The TikTok that really got to me was titled, P.O. 5th, you are planning the most evolved wedding ever. It showed her and David looking at wedding venues together, tasting cakes together, and shopping for decorations together, all while I was at work. The video got 47,000 views and hundreds of comments, ranging from relationship goals to, this is so wrong. But the worst part was what she started telling people about me behind my back. At the joint bachelorette party, I overheard her talking to her maid of honor, Jessica, in the bathroom. Mark is having such a hard time with David being in the wedding. I keep trying to help him grow and overcome his possessiveness, but he is just so traditional and insecure. David would never act that way. He is confident enough in himself to let his partner have male friends. That comment hit me like a freight train. She was actively comparing me to her ex-boyfriend, and I was coming up short in her mind. My best friend Jake pulled me aside that night after witnessing the whole scene. Dude, this is absolutely insane. No self-respecting man would put up with this shit. She is basically flaunting her ex in your face and calling you names when you object. It is complicated, Jake. She says it is about being mature and secure in the relationship. Mature? She is acting like a teenager who wants to keep all her options open. He pointed across the room where Sarah was showing David something on her phone, both of them laughing intimately while completely ignoring me. Look at them right now. That is not friendship. That is emotional cheating at minimum. I knew he was right, but I was trapped in the sunk cost fallacy. We had already put down $18,000 in venue deposits, sent out 150 invitations, booked a photographer, ordered flowers, and reserved hotel blocks for out-of-town guests. The wedding was scheduled for June 15th, just 6 weeks away. How could I blow everything up over what Sarah kept insisting was just a healthy friendship? But my gut was screaming at me that something was seriously wrong. Sarah's behavior became increasingly suspicious as the wedding approached. She would go out for coffee with David and come back 3 hours later with elaborate explanations about how they had gotten caught up planning surprise elements for the wedding. She started password protecting her phone and getting defensive when I would glance at the screen. Her work schedule suddenly included a lot of evening client meetings and industry networking events that she could not tell me much about. The breaking point came on a Tuesday night in early May. Sarah went out for what was supposed to be a 2-hour dinner with David to finalize the ceremony timeline. She came home at 11:47 p.m. I remember the exact time because I was lying in bed watching the clock, worried something had happened to her. Her hair was messed up, her lipstick was completely gone, and she smelled like cologne that definitely was not mine. When she walked into the bedroom, she avoided eye contact and headed straight for the bathroom. "How was dinner?" I asked as casually as I could manage. "Oh, you know, David. Once he starts talking about wedding details, time just flies." We ended up going to 3 different venues to get inspiration for the reception layout. She started the shower without kissing me goodnight, something that had never happened in our entire relationship. I lay in bed that night knowing with absolute certainty that something was wrong, but not wanting to face the implications. The wedding was 5 weeks away. All our friends and family had made travel plans. My parents had already taken time off work and booked their hotel rooms. My brother was flying in from Seattle. How could I even begin to investigate my suspicions without imploding everything we had built? But Jake's words kept echoing in my head. No self-respecting man would put up with this. The next morning, while Sarah was at work, I did something I had never done before in any relationship. I checked our phone records online. Sarah and David were texting constantly, hundreds of messages per day, often starting early in the morning and continuing late into the night. More telling were the phone calls, hour-long conversations that happened when Sarah claimed to be in client meetings or running errands for work. I also noticed charges on our joint credit card that did not make sense. A $180 charge at the Marriott downtown on a Tuesday afternoon when Sarah said she was visiting a client site, and dinner for 2 at Romano's, an expensive Italian restaurant, on a night when she claimed to be working late and had texted me that she was grabbing Subway. My hands were literally shaking as I screenshotted everything and forwarded it to my personal email. That is when I remembered that David had a long-term girlfriend named Clare. I had met her several times at group events over the past year. She was a really nice woman who worked as a pediatric nurse at Children's Hospital. If David was cheating with Sarah, Claire deserved to know, and she might have insights that could help me understand what was really going on. Finding Claire's contact information took some social media detective work, but I managed to track down her Instagram account through mutual friends. I sent her a direct message. "Hi Claire, this is Mark, Sarah's fiancé. I think we need to talk about David and Sarah. Could you call me when you get a chance? Something is not right." She called me within 2 hours. "Mark, thank God you reached out. I have been going absolutely crazy, wondering if I was imagining things or if something was really wrong." "What do you mean?" "David has been acting so strange for months now, always on his phone, going out at weird times, coming home late with elaborate explanations that do not quite add up. He claims he has to help with wedding planning constantly, but when I ask specific questions about what they are planning, he gets vague and changes the subject." My stomach dropped to the floor. "Have you noticed any unusual expenses?" "Yes. How did you know?" "I saw hotel charges on his credit card that he claimed were for a work conference, but I called his office and they said the company had not sent anyone to any conferences. When I confronted him about it, he got angry and accused me of not trusting him." We agreed to meet in person the next day after work. Claire brought her laptop and showed me everything she had discovered. David's credit card statements with hotel charges that matched the dates and amounts on my card, location data from his phone showing him places he had lied about being, and screenshots of Instagram posts where he had been tagged at restaurants with Sarah when he told Claire he was working late. "I feel like such an idiot," Claire said, tears forming in her eyes. "Everyone has been telling me what a great guy David is for staying friends with his ex and being in their wedding, and the whole time they have been carrying on right under our noses." "We are both idiots," I replied, "but at least now we know we are not crazy." That is when Claire said something that changed the entire trajectory of the situation. "Mark, I want them to face consequences for this, not just breaking up quietly and letting them move on with their lives. I want them to understand what it feels like to be humiliated publicly after they have been humiliating us for months." The plan took shape over several conversations between Claire and me over the following week. She turned out to be surprisingly strategic and detail-oriented for someone who was dealing with such an emotional betrayal. First, we needed undeniable proof. Claire still had access to David's laptop through their shared streaming accounts and home Wi-Fi network. She managed to access his text message backups through their shared iCloud family plan and screenshotted everything. Months of flirty messages, explicit photos, and detailed plans for their hotel meetups. The evidence was absolutely overwhelming and undeniably authentic. The most damning text exchange was from 3 weeks before the wedding. From Sarah, "I honestly cannot wait for this whole wedding charade to be over, so we do not have to pretend anymore. Mark is so clueless about what is happening right under his nose. It is almost sad." From David, "You deserve so much better than that boring contractor. I cannot wait until you are finally mine for real instead of just sneaking around." From Sarah, "Soon, baby. Just have to get through this wedding, and then I can figure out my exit strategy. The financial security is nice while I decide what I really want long term." There it was in black and white. She was planning to use me as a financial safety net while carrying on with David with no intention of honoring our marriage vows. But the truly nuclear evidence was a voice message Sarah had sent David the week before, recorded during one of her client meetings. Sarah's voice said, "I honestly cannot believe I am actually going through with marrying him. You are everything he could never be: successful, sophisticated, emotionally intelligent, actually good in bed. But the security is nice, and his house is paid off, so it is a good backup plan while I figure out what I really want. Do not worry, baby. This marriage definitely is not forever, just a stepping stone." The betrayal was complete and calculated. She was not just cheating, she was planning to commit marriage fraud. Claire and I spent 2 weeks meticulously documenting everything. She used David's laptop to print out their most damning conversations while he was at work. I hired a private investigator for $1,200 to photograph them entering and leaving hotels together, getting undeniable visual evidence of their affair. The PI, a retired police detective named Frank, was incredibly thorough. He provided me with timestamps, license plate numbers, and high-resolution photos of Sarah and David entering the Marriott, the Hampton Inn, and even a seedy motel on the outskirts of town. The photos showed them holding hands, kissing in parking lots, and looking very much like a couple, not like friends planning a wedding. The wedding was now 10 days away. All the vendors were confirmed. Out-of-town guests were arriving and checking into their hotel rooms, and Sarah was in full bride mode, posting daily content about our evolved wedding ceremony and her amazing man of honor, who is breaking gender norms. That is when Claire and I executed phase 1 of our master plan. I called my cousin Marcus, who happens to be a divorce attorney here in Denver with his own practice. I explained the entire situation and asked him to attend the wedding as my +1 guest. I am not married yet, I told him, but something tells me I'm going to need your professional services very soon. Marcus was immediately interested. This sounds like the most entertaining wedding I will ever attend and potentially the most lucrative consultation I will ever get. Next, I reached out to David's employer discreetly. He worked for Mountain Financial Services, a company that had a strict morality clause in their employee handbook. Any conduct that brought negative attention to the company or violated their integrity standards could result in immediate termination. I did not do anything with this information yet, but I wanted it ready for the right moment. Finally, Claire and I coordinated our timing perfectly. She would attend the wedding as my last-minute guest, sitting in the front row, where she would have clear sightlines to both Sarah and David during the ceremony. I told Sarah that my cousin Marcus was bringing a date he had recently started seeing, a nurse he had met through work. Sarah was so wrapped up in her own wedding drama that she barely acknowledged the addition to the guest list. The week leading up to the wedding, Sarah's behavior reached peak levels of disrespect and deception. She spent every evening finalizing last-minute details with David, coming home after 10 p.m., and claiming they had been coordinating with vendors or doing final venue walkthroughs. She posted a TikTok about couples who trust each other enough to have opposite-sex best friends that got over 200,000 views and sparked massive debates in the comments. My favorite comment was from my sister Amy. Girl, if you need this much social media validation for your choices, maybe reconsider the choices. Sarah blocked Amy immediately and then posted another TikTok about toxic family members who cannot handle growth. The night before the wedding, Sarah stayed at her parents' house for tradition, though I suspected she was actually staying somewhere else entirely. She texted me around midnight, "Cannot wait to marry you tomorrow, babe. Our wedding is going to show everyone what real evolved love looks like when both people do the inner work." Last night as an engaged couple, I replied, "It is definitely going to be memorable." I barely slept that night. Part of me still felt sick about what Claire and I were planning to do, but every time I wavered, I would reread those messages about how boring and clueless I was, how she was planning to use me for financial security while fucking her ex-boyfriend behind my back. By morning, I was completely resolved. Game time. The wedding venue was Chatfield Farms, a historic estate outside Denver that we booked for $12,000 for the day. Sarah had spent months planning every detail to be Instagram perfect. The flowers alone cost $4,200. She had hired a professional videographer specifically to capture content for her social media channels and wedding inspiration business she wanted to start. All that effort and expense was about to backfire spectacularly. I arrived early to coordinate final details with Claire and Marcus. Claire looked absolutely stunning in a navy blue dress that complemented our wedding colors perfectly. She had brought a small purse containing printed copies of the most damning text exchanges, screenshots of hotel receipts, and photos from the private investigator. "Are you sure you are ready for this?" I asked her one final time as guests started arriving. They humiliated us for months while we trusted them completely. They planned to keep humiliating us for years to come. Now it is their turn to feel what that is like. Her voice was steady and determined. Marcus was practically giddy with anticipation. I have been practicing family law for 15 years, and I have never seen evidence this thorough. This is going to be legendary. The ceremony began at 4:30 p.m. sharp. Sarah looked absolutely radiant in her $5,500 designer dress, walking down the aisle to a string quartet playing Pachelbel's Canon, her favorite piece since childhood. David stood at the altar in his groomsman tuxedo, beaming with pride like he was the one getting married. For a brief moment, watching her approach with that genuine smile, I almost chickened out. She looked so happy, so beautiful, so perfectly bridal, but then I caught sight of David checking his phone during the processional, probably reading a text message she had sent him that morning, and my resolve hardened completely. The officiant, Pastor Williams from Sarah's family church, began the ceremony with traditional words about love, commitment, and fidelity. Sarah had written her own vows naturally, and they were full of flowery language about choosing growth over comfort, embracing evolved love, and building a partnership based on trust and authenticity. She looked directly at David during several lines that were clearly meant for him, not me. I promised to always choose love over fear, passion over comfort, and authentic connection over societal expectations. My vows were simple and traditional. I had written them weeks ago before I knew what I knew. They were honest expressions of love for the woman I thought I was marrying, not the fraudulent person standing in front of me. Then came the moment of truth. If anyone has any reason why these two should not be wed, speak now or forever hold your peace. Pastor Williams barely got the words out before I turned to Claire, who was sitting in the front row, and said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Actually, I think my guest has something she would like to share with everyone." The gasps started immediately. Sarah's face went from bridal glow to pure white in a split second. David looked like he was about to pass out. Claire stood up gracefully, her heels clicking on the wooden floor of the pavilion. She walked to the center aisle, pulled out her phone, and addressed the crowd of 150 guests in a clear, steady voice. "Hi everyone, I am Claire, David's girlfriend of 4 years, or should I say ex-girlfriend as of right now." Her voice carried clearly through the silent pavilion. "I have some text messages I think the bride and groom should hear, along with everyone else." Sarah found her voice and started panicking. "What the hell is going on? Mark, who is this woman? This is insane." "This," I said calmly, adjusting my boutonniere, "is the woman your man of honor has been cheating on with you for the past 6 months. The pavilion erupted in shocked gasps and murmurs. Sarah's mother audibly gasped. David's father stood up from his seat, and several guests immediately started pulling out their phones to record what was happening. Claire began reading from her printed screenshots in a clear, dramatic voice. From Sarah to David. 3 weeks ago, I honestly cannot wait for this whole wedding charade to be over, so we do not have to pretend anymore. Mark is so clueless about what is happening right under his nose. It is almost sad. More gasps and murmurs from the crowd. Sarah was frantically shaking her head and trying to interrupt, but Claire continued. From David to Sarah, 2 weeks ago, you deserve so much better than that boring contractor. I cannot wait until you are finally mine for real, instead of just sneaking around. This is completely insane, Sarah shouted, her voice cracking. Those are fake. This woman is clearly obsessed with David and making things up. That is when Claire played the voice message. Sarah's own voice, clear as day through the pavilion sound system, talking about how she could not believe she was marrying me and how David was everything I could never be. The silence that followed was absolutely deafening. You could have heard a pin drop. David tried to make a run for it, pushing past my groomsmen toward the exit, but Jake and my brother caught him by the arms before he could escape. Not so fast, Romeo, Jake said loudly. I think you owe everyone here an explanation. Sarah was in complete meltdown mode, mascara running down her face in black streams. This is all completely out of context. Mark, you know I love you. This woman is lying and manipulating everything. I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the private investigators' photos. A crystal clear shot of her and David entering a hotel room together, timestamp showing last Tuesday afternoon. Context, I said simply. That is when she completely lost her composure. You hired a private investigator? You are absolutely insane. You are controlling and obsessive, and I dodged a bullet. Funny, I replied, my voice steady and calm, because according to your voice message, you were planning to marry me for financial security while screwing your ex-boyfriend. Does not sound like bullet dodging to me. The pavilion was complete chaos. Half the guests were filming everything on their phones. Sarah's bridesmaids were trying to calm her down, and David's family was demanding answers from him. My cousin Marcus stepped forward, handed me his business card, and announced loudly, "For anyone who needs legal consultation after this, I am a family law attorney, though it looks like we might be talking about annulment rather than divorce." Sarah's father, Thomas, approached the altar, looking mortified. Sarah Elizabeth, what in God's name have you done to this family? Before she could answer, Claire played one more audio file. David describing in graphic detail what he wanted to do to Sarah after the wedding was over, recorded during one of their hotel visits. That was the final straw. David's own mother, a sweet 60-year-old woman named Linda, walked up and slapped him across the face in front of everyone. "How dare you embarrass our family like this, you disgusting pig!" The ceremony was officially over, but the drama was just beginning. Guests were streaming toward the exits, already posting videos to their social media accounts. The hashtag Sarah had been so proud of, Mark and Sarah Evolved, was about to trend for all the wrong reasons. But I was not done yet, not even close, as people filed out of the pavilion, many stopping to offer me condolences and support. I made an announcement to those who remained. For anyone wondering, the reception is obviously canceled. However, the bar package is fully paid for, so anyone who wants to stay and have a drink while we sort out this mess is more than welcome. About 40 guests stayed, including both sets of parents, my groomsmen, and several family members. The other 110 left, but not before taking plenty of photos and videos that would live forever on the internet. Sarah cornered me near the gift table while Claire was outside on the phone with her lawyer. "Mark, please. We can work through this. I made mistakes, but I love you. David manipulated me. You love my financial security, I corrected her, showing her another screenshot. Your exact words were that this marriage is not forever, and you need to figure out your exit strategy. So, let us not pretend you are heartbroken about ending it. I was confused. David made me think things that were not true. Sarah, I have 6 months of evidence showing you initiated most of these conversations. You planned the hotel visits. You complained about me constantly while telling David he was everything I was not. I scrolled to another message thread. You literally called me a boring stepping stone to something better, last month. She crumpled into one of the white wooden chairs, the fight going out of her completely. What happens now? Now you get to explain to everyone why you humiliated both of us publicly. You get to deal with the fact that every video of this disaster is already going viral online, and you get to figure out how to rebuild your life without my financial support or my house. I walked away, leaving her sobbing in her $5,500 dress. The aftermath began immediately and intensified over the following weeks. The videos from our wedding went viral within hours. Sarah's TikTok account, which she had used to promote our evolved relationship, became a meme overnight. People were making reaction videos to clips of Claire reading those text messages. The hashtag evolution in action started trending as people mocked the concept of having your ex-boyfriend in your wedding party. One TikTok user remixed Claire's voice, reading the text with dramatic music, and it got 2.8 million views. Another creator made a Where Are They Now style video, tracking down all the details of our story. David's employer saw the videos by Monday morning. Mountain Financial Services fired him by Tuesday afternoon for conduct unbecoming of a company representative and violation of their integrity standards. The financial services industry is surprisingly small and gossipy. Word traveled fast through professional networks. He has been unemployed for 8 months now, and no reputable firm will touch him. Sarah lost her job within 2 weeks. Innovate Keo prided itself on its progressive, employee-friendly culture, but they drew the line at employees whose personal drama became public embarrassment and reflected poorly on the company brand. They cited poor judgment affecting company reputation when they terminated her. The financial devastation was swift and total. Since my name was the only one on our apartment lease and the house deed, Sarah had to move out immediately. She crashed with different friends for a few weeks before everyone got tired of her drama and stopped responding to her calls. She finally had to move back in with her parents at age 29. A particularly bitter pill for someone who had spent months bragging online about her adult independence and evolved relationship. I recovered almost all of the wedding expenses by providing evidence of fraud to vendors. The venue, photographer, florist, and caterer all agreed that being defrauded by the bride constituted legitimate grounds for a deposit refund. I recovered $16,800 of the $18,000 we had put down. The engagement ring was a more complicated situation. Legally, since she was the one who broke the engagement through documented infidelity, I was entitled to its return. When Sarah initially refused to give it back, claiming it was compensation for emotional damage, my cousin Marcus sent her a formal legal demand letter. She returned it within 24 hours. I sold the ring to a jewelry store for $6,800, a significant loss from the $9,200 I had paid, but I wanted it completely out of my life. Meanwhile, Claire took David to small claims court for money she had loaned him over their 4-year relationship, car payments, rent assistance, vacation expenses, and credit card debt he had accumulated. With documented evidence of his infidelity and financial fraud, she won a judgment for $14,300. David, now unemployed and toxic in his industry, filed for bankruptcy within 4 months. The social media fallout was relentless and showed no signs of stopping. Sarah tried to control the narrative by posting her own version of events, claiming I was financially abusive and controlling, and that she had been trying to escape our relationship. But the evidence was too damning and public. Every time she posted, someone would reply with screenshots of her own messages calling me boring and describing our marriage as temporary. Her evolved relationship content became a cautionary tale across multiple platforms. Relationship advice YouTubers used our story as an example of how not to handle boundaries. A men's rights podcast devoted an entire 2-hour episode to analyzing how Sarah had weaponized progressive language to justify cheating and emotional abuse. The most brutal blow came when Reddit Stories, a TikTok account that does dramatic readings of relationship posts, did a 3-part series on our saga. The combined videos got over 5 million views and spawned hundreds of reaction videos and response content. Sarah's friends started tagging her in the comments, asking if it was really about her. She eventually deleted all her social media accounts and has not been seen online since. David tried to rebuild his reputation by claiming he was the victim of a vindictive ex-girlfriend, Claire, and a controlling, abusive fiancée, me, but the evidence spoke for itself. His own text messages showed him pursuing Sarah aggressively, planning their affairs in detail, and mocking both Claire and me behind our backs. His dating life became non-existent. In Denver's professional circles, everyone knew what he had done. Women avoided him completely, and his male friends lost all respect for him. The last update I heard was that he had moved back in with his parents in Kansas.